Welcome to the Cinematic Explainer. I'm Dr. Chem, and today we're venturing into the microscopic and honestly, often completely invisible world of analytical chemistry. We are going to tackle a monumental task, measuring chloride in water. You know, whether we're talking about a turbulent, muddy estuary or a totally sterile pharmaceutical plant, what hides inside our water absolutely dictates our safety. So today, we're going to trace decades of scientific innovation to uncover exactly how we capture and quantify this ubiquitous anion. Okay, let's dive right into this. Here is the agenda for our journey today. We'll cover the chloride measurement challenge, the classic titration Mohr method, potentiometry, ion chromatography, a performance comparison, and finally, choosing the right method.
Section 1, the chloride measurement challenge.
So this brings us to a really fundamental question. How do we accurately quantify a totally invisible ion floating around in our water? I mean, you can't just stare at a glass of water and count the chloride ions, right? We need a way to literally force those invisible ions to reveal themselves. We have to create a physical or electrical signal that we can actually measure.
To solve this exact problem, scientists over the years developed a comprehensive toolkit. These are documented in standards like ISO 9297. You've got recognized methods ranging from argentometric titration to the mercuric nitrate method, potentiometric methods, automated ferric cyanide methods, mercuric thiocyanate flow injection, all the way to ion chromatography. Now, while there are a lot of options, our explainer today is going to focus on an evolutionary progression. We're going to track our leap from classic chemical reactions directly to modern ion chromatography. Section 2. Classic titration, the Mohr method.
So the Mohr method is a specific type of argentometry. And honestly, the best way to think of argentometry is like a really strict chemical race. It's a volumetric analysis technique where we introduce a standard solution of silver nitrate into our sample. Now, silver ions absolutely love chloride ions. When they meet, they immediately react to form silver chloride, which instantly falls out of the solution as a solid white precipitate. The rule of the race is simple. As long as there is free chloride in the water, the silver will react with it first, before it does literally anything else. So here's how this highly visual process actually goes down on the lab bench. Step 1, you prep your sample. And you have to carefully adjust the pH to be between 6.5 and 10. This is a super critical detail from our sources, because if the water is too acidic, the chromate indicator gets tied up and it delays your results. On the flip side, if it's too alkaline, you accidentally create silver hydroxide instead. Not good. Step 2, you add potassium chromate, which turns your cloudy water a faint lemon yellow color. Step 3, you start the titration. You slowly drip in your 0.1 molar silver nitrate. You are chemically hunting down that chloride. And step 4, you watch super closely for the endpoint. That endpoint is what I absolutely love to call the chemical alarm bell. Think about it. The literal second that all the chloride ions have been captured by the silver, that very next drop of silver nitrate has zero chloride left to react with. So what does it do? It reacts with the potassium chromate indicator instead, and instantly a permanent reddish-brown precipitate of silver chromate forms. It's this brilliant, unmistakable visual signal. The moment you see it, you stop dripping, you check exactly how much silver nitrate you used, and you calculate your chloride concentration. It's brilliant.
Section 3, potentiometry, electrochemical measurement. But hold on, ask yourself this. What if your sample is already colored? Or what if it's muddy or highly turbid? Like, if you are testing raw wastewater, you simply cannot rely on the human eye to see a faint reddish-brown color change in a beaker full of murky liquid. It's just not going to happen. This specific real-world limitation forced scientists to develop methods that can see beyond visual color changes. Now, what's really interesting is how we solve that murky water problem using an ion selective electrode, or ISE, in potentiometry. Instead of looking for a color change with our eyes, we measure voltage. The indicator electrode features the solid-state membrane right at the bottom, made of a silver sulfide and silver chloride salt. When you dip this into your water sample, the difference in chloride concentration between the inside of the electrode and your actual sample causes ions to migrate. This ion exchange across the membrane develops an electrical potential. We are quite literally translating the presence of chloride into an electrical signal.
So the crucial point here is understanding exactly what that electrical signal is reading. As our source material beautifully states, specific ion electrodes measure chemical activity, not strictly concentration. To get a highly accurate concentration reading in something like parts per million, we have to add an ionic strength adjustment buffer, or ISAB for short. By adding a large amount of an inert, strong electrolyte, we fix the ionic strength to a constant value. That step ensures that our voltage reading accurately reflects the true chloride concentration. And we can actually combine these concepts, which is super cool. You can use an automated machine to perform that classic silver nitrate titration we talked about earlier, but instead of using a color-changing indicator, you drop in an electrode. As the silver nitrate is added, the machine plots this beautiful S-curve. The exact middle of that steep drop, the inflection point, is your endpoint. No human eyes needed. No second guessing if the color is truly reddish-brown yet. The machine detects the exact millivolt jump for you.
Section 4. Ion chromatography, modern analysis.
Okay, comparing classic titration to ion chromatography, or IC, is honestly like looking at two entirely different eras of science. Titration relies on simple glassware, manual step-by-step analysis, and, as we saw, it's pretty susceptible to interferences. Ion chromatography, on the other hand, trades that humble glassware for sophisticated suppressors, highly sensitive conductivity detectors, and automated autosamplers that are capable of processing dozens of samples completely unattended. It's a massive leap forward. I like to think of the IC system as a highly specific, microscopic obstacle course. When you inject your water sample, it gets pushed under pressure through an anion exchange column filled with a stationary phase. Now, different ions have different affinities for this stationary phase. They basically run the obstacle course at entirely different speeds. This brilliant separation effectively resolves our target chloride from any other interfering anions. So by the time the chloride finally reaches the conductivity detector at the finish line, it is completely isolated and perfectly ready to be quantified.
Section 5. Performance comparison. Let's look at the numbers. This data comes directly from a BenchChem comparative guide, and wow, the differences are striking. Just look at the limit of detection, or LOD. Titration is generally suitable for milligrams per liter. But ion chromatography, it can detect trace chloride down to micrograms per liter. Guys, that's parts per billion. To put that in perspective, that is incredibly trace detection. In terms of precision, IC boasts a relative standard deviation of less than 1%. Meanwhile, titration studies on complex samples, like cement for instance, showed an RSD closer to 4.6%. Plus, IC allows for high-throughput, simultaneous analysis of multiple different anions in just a single run. Titration manually measures just one sample at a time, specifically for halides that react with silver. Section 6. Choosing the right method. So, how do we actually apply this knowledge in the real world? The BenchChem decision tree brilliantly illustrates this. You just start by asking, what is the expected concentration? If you're looking for trace levels, you absolutely must use ion chromatography. But if the concentration is high, you then ask, are there significant interferences like color or bromides? If yes, you stick with IC. However, if you have high chloride concentrations, minimal interferences, and you only need to measure chloride, the classic titration method remains incredibly robust and highly cost-effective. It gets the job done perfectly. Which brings us to a final, pretty thought-provoking question. With ion chromatography offering trace-level detection and total automation, will the humble glassware of classic titration eventually disappear from the lab entirely, or, because of its simplicity and unmatched cost-effectiveness for straightforward samples, is there always a place for the classics in modern science? Ultimately, it all comes down to knowing your sample, knowing your tools, and choosing the right chemistry for the job. This has been Dr. Chem. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the invisible world around you.